This week we will talk about CSS formatting for text, and this including changing the font, setting font size, change font color and alignment. Okay, and we start with choosing a font family. This must choose a font type for the text in a page. Okay, the syntax is font family name. Here the property is font family and name is the name of the font. So for example, the name can be called Arial. Okay, if the font name contains more than one word, you need to including a double quote to make sure the browser understands that the name contains more than one word. If the font name contains non-ASCII characters, so these are the characters besides 1 to 9, all the alphabet and common symbols, for example a Chinese character or Arabic character, you have to declare the encoding in the style sheet. So the way to do it is quite simple, just use @charset UTF-8 and the first line of your style sheet. This is quite similar as you're declaring charset in the HTML file. And you should always do that because you don't know whether you will need any non-ASCII character later in your CSS file. So this is not just for font family, for any other font rules, any other formatting rules in the CSS file. The font family property is inherited. That means the child or any grandchild or grand-grandchild will use the same font family unless specified otherwise. Let's have a look at the example. This is a web page without any font formatting. Here all the text using the default font that the browser specifies for the links, for the headings and for the text paragraph. Now we set two rules. First we set the body. The font will be Palatino linotype. Okay, and this will change the font of everything in the body. As we said earlier, because the font property is inherited, so anything within the body, including the links, the headings and the paragraph, they will all use the same font here. However, if we don't want to use this font for the headings, we can add one more rule. Says H1, H2 font family Arial black. Then this rule will overwrite the previous ones and change the fonts for H1 and H2, which as we can see here. Okay, and let's have a look at how this page looks like in the browser. So here is the page. Exactly the page as we shown here, this one. Okay, if we look at this CSS file, has these a few rules, very simple. You first set as a character set as UTF-8. Okay, then set the font family for the body as Palatino linotype, and then change the font family of H1 and H2 to Arial black. Okay, and if we select any elements in the page, for example, I select this link here, and when I'm looking at the development tools, I can see that's the part of HTML code that shows the link I just selected, but also on this side I can see all the CSS formatting for that link. Here we are interested in the font family, so we can see here it says font family Palatino linotype, and it also shows body here. That means this is the rules. It says here it's inherited from body. Okay, and also if we select this paragraph here, we can see again it says font family Palatino linotype inherited from body. Okay, but if we select the heading here, which is H1, you can see the font family says is Arial Black, H1 and H2. And then later on here, it still shows inherited from body, but you can see this rules is crossed out. That means this rules has been overwritten by this rule here. Okay, so the visitor looking at your web page will only be able to see the font if they have it installed on their computer. But this not always be the case. So the font family property allows you to include alternative font if the first choice is not available. So this is our previous example. We set font family as Palatino linotype, which is very specific. Many people might not have it installed on their computer. Okay, this is a better way, which including two alternative fonts called Palatino and then serif font. So this is called a font stack. The browser would look for Palatino if Palatino linotype is not installed on computer, and if even that fails, they were looking for any serif font if it is stored. Okay. And to show you what a serif font it looks like, this is example. The serif means these red bits or the little tick at the end of the particular font. And to that called sans serif font that does not have any of these ticks. The most famous serif font is probably Times New Roman, which is the default one in Microsoft Word. Here it says if the first two is not available, use any serif font that is installed in the computer. If you want to the user be able to the font of your choice on their computers, the safe way is to choose the font that is available on both Mac and Windows systems. Okay, and such common fonts available in both operating systems is actually quite limited. This is a list of them. That's actually not that many, considering, say, how many are there in Windows. It's actually 238 different fonts. And if I click here, it goes to the font directories on my computer. And I can see all the different fonts installed. In this particular case, I only have 180. Still, this is much bigger than the list of fonts here. Okay, many websites use one of these common fonts because they are already installed on these computers and they will be able to display correctly. And Arial is probably the most common one. It's a sans serif font without little ticks at the end of the letters. And even a font is available on both Mac and Windows. The same font, they might still appear to be slightly different, but these are much harder to detect. It is also possible to use CSS formatting to set text as either italic or bold. Okay, to set the text as italic, this is when it's not appropriate to use EM, which besides setting the text as italic, but also means emphasizing the text since they are important in some way. So the way to do this is using font style property and set the value as italic. So let's look at an example. Here is a web page, and here is its CSS file. These are the similar as before. Now we add a new rules. Says for any paragraph, the font style should be italic. And if we look at the web page, you can see all the paragraphs are italic. Okay, you can also remove the effects of italic, and what you say is font style, instead of using italic, put normal, and this can be useful when you want to emphasize text in a paragraph that already has italic formatting. For example, here the whole entire paragraph is italic, and any unitalic text actually would stand out. Okay, similarly, you can use CSS formatting when it is not suitable to use the element strong, which has semantic meanings, again to say the text is important in some way. Here, the way to do that is to say font weight bold. Okay, please note here is font weight, and previously it says font style, so it's a little bit different. And here is those examples. And if we look at the CSS files, again we add a few more new rules. It says em a link a hover font weight bold. Okay, here it's overwritten the default formatting for em from italic to bold. Also it says for any links, which is the anchor element a here, it will be bold. So if we look at the web page, and we can see two links here, and I select this particular link here, and you can see the font weight is bold. That means this is the link, and because of the rules, it was shown in bold. It is also possible to set the font weight as bolder or lighter. This will be setting relatively to the current weight. So if the current weight is normal, and then the bolder font weight will give it a bold font. Or you can use a number between 100 and 900 to specify the font weight. In this example, the font weight is 500, and 400 represents normal, so 500 will be slightly bold font. Okay, there are two ways to set font size, i.e. how big the font or text is. So you can set this, use absolute size or relative size. So relative size is usually the preferred way, because the size of the display can change a lot between desktop monitors to mobile phones. So one fixed size probably would not fit all. Okay, we start with the absolute font size, and it's something like this. So the property is called font size, and the value is pixels. So here it says body font size 14 pixels. So the font size will be 14 pixels. And for the heading 1, the font size will be 22, heading 2 15, etc., etc. Okay, the relative font size is relative to parent's font size. So a good practice is to establish a baseline of the font size of the body element, which is parent or ancestors of all elements on a page, the common way will be set the font size for body to 100%. Something like this, font size 100%. And in most browsers, this sets the size of the default font to 16 pixels, which is also shown here in a comment. And then, based on that, we can set the font size for the other elements like H1, H2, and P, paragraph. So here we set the font size of H1 at 1.375 EM. So that's 1.375 times of its parent size. So that will translate to about 22 pixels, because 22 divided by 16 will give you 1.375. And H2 will be 9375 EM, which is about 15 pixels. And finally, for the paragraph, the font size about 14 pixels. Okay, instead of saying 0.875 EM, you can also say 87.5%. That will give you exactly the same result. Finally, you can actually set font size as XX small, X small, small, medium, large, or extra large, etc. Okay, and then the actual font size will be decided by the browser, but its relative size will be the same as the value. Okay, so it's also possible to set the line height. Line height is space between the lines in a paragraph. So it can be changed using the line height property followed by value. In this example, it shows the line height is 1.6 times of the font size, so you have a fairly large gap between the lines in a paragraph. So a large lines can make text easier to read, and a small line height for multiple line headings make them look more stylish. Okay, let's have a look of the example here. We have the same web page, but add a few more formattings here now. So this is CSS files, and we can see it adds all these font size, as we discussed in the previous slides, and particularly here we set the line height as 1.6. And if we look at the web pages, we can see the gaps between lines are very large. And here we select the one paragraph, and in the CSS part we can say it says line height equal to 1.6, and I could just untick that, which will disable this kind of formatting rules, and you can see the space between lines reduced, turn it back on, it's increased again. So far we have covered a few different properties that you can set to change how text is displayed. It can be tedious if you have to specify each property separately. That means a number of different formatting rules. To make things a little bit easy, you can actually set all font values in one formatting rule. So these including font style, font weight, different variations of font, which we'll cover a little bit later, size, line height, and font family. Okay, and it has to be set in this particular order, and some of the values are optional. So this example, so you have to start with font style, and this is optional. So the value can be either normal or italic. If the value doesn't exist, it will be assumed as normal. So next one is weight. Again, it's optional, and if there's nothing there, it will be normal. Next one will be font size. This is compulsory, so you have to have it. You can either specify in pixels, which is absolute size, or EM as relative size. Next is line height. Again, this is optional. And finally is font family. And this is the second compulsory value, so you have to have a font family specified. If we look at these examples, here we specify the font for the body. Instead of specifying size and font family separately, we combine them together. We're saying 100%, which is first compulsory value, and then a font stack, which is the second compulsory value. Similarly, we do for H1 and H2, which has the size and font stack. Okay, so here we have the formatting for the paragraph elements. Even it has two different rules, we cannot combine them because it's missing the compulsory value, which is font family. Basically, this means the paragraph will inherit font family from its parent. Okay, so unless we specify a font family, we have to write these two down as two separate rules rather than combine them into one. Okay, and it's also possible to use CSS to specify color. So here we're specifying the color for the text, which is similar to specifying the color for many other elements. Okay, so there are 4 ways, and they are exactly the same as we covered in week 12, which is introduction to the CSS. So you can say color, which is property and value, followed by a color name. So this is example. Here we say color is navy, or that could be red, blue, yellow, black, etc. The second way is to using RGB value. So the RGB stands for red, green, and blue. And the third way, we can using the hexadecimal number. So we start with hashtag, and then there's 2 digits to represent red, 2 digits for green, and 2 digits for blue. All this can be shorthanded as R, G, and B when the 2 digits for the color is the same. So when RGB means RR, GG, and BB. Okay, so this example using the hexadecimal numbers. So we say color hashtag 74 is a value for red, 26, or rather say 26 in hexadecimal is for the green, and 90 for the blue value. Okay, hexadecimal values. And you can actually also including the extra alpha channel, which represents transparency. So instead of RGB, you say RGBA, and you have 4 values afterwards, represent red, green, blue, and alpha channel, which is transparency. I think the larger the value, the more transparent the color is. That means you can see better what's behind it. So the value of RGB is between 0 and 255. 0 means no color, and 255 means most saturated color. And A stands for alpha, which specifies the transparency. Okay, we can also change the background of text. So we can change the background to a particular color. Here the property is background and the value is color. The way of specifying color is the same as last slide. You can use color name, you can use RGB values, or use hexadecimal numbers. Okay, so here is example. We're setting the background as using hexadecimal numbers. So start with hashtag and then EEF. Here, EEF is shorthand for double E for the first E, double E again for the second E, and double F for the F. Okay, and besides setting background to a single color, you can also using a picture. And then what you need to do is then using the keyword URL, then the actual URL of the picture. In this particular example, it shows use the picture called image.gif in the same directory as HTML file. Okay, so in this case, it's use the image for the background. And then a few options you can do. You can say repeat X, repeat Y, or just repeat. Here is when the image is smaller than the element, then you can repeat it. It's like the tile effect you have when you apply, say, a wallpaper in Windows. Or you can set it to be fixed or scroll. So by default, it's scroll. That means if you have a long page, you scroll it down, the background moves with the content. Whereas fixed, the background image will stay there even as you scroll down the web page. Okay, and here is the example of a fixed background image. Let's say this is a website. These are two background images applied to, say, a div element on the page. And you can see, as I scroll down the page, these two will stay there. So that's the impact or the effect of a fixed background image here. Okay, when applying a color or apply an image or add an image to the background, you need to make sure there's enough contrast between the background image and foreground text. For example, if you add black text onto a paragraph with black background, then you cannot see the text at all. Here is an example of applying the colors. So on the left we have the web page without any text or background color. On the right we have the same web page but with the text color and background color changed. And we can have a look at the page in the actual browser. So that's the page we have on the right. And if we look at the CSS formatting code, we can see a few rules for the coloring. First, we have the body. Its background is set to EEF, so that gives a certain color, and the color says to 909. So that sets the text color of the body. And because this is inherited value, so any elements in the body will have this text color by default, unless it's set otherwise. So here we can see H1, H2 has a color which is navy, so I change the color of the heading to navy, otherwise the default will be the color here, 909. And okay, and further down we can say it changed the link color to another particular color. So if we look at the page now, so we can see the whole page has a certain background color. So if we choose the body, we can see the background color is EEF. So the browser shows you what it looks like. Very fainted purple. And if we untick that, you can see the effect, which changes the default background color. Okay, and if we select any elements, for example, we'll select one paragraph, and you can see its background is EEF, which is inherited from the body. And if we go back to the body, we can again see here the text color is set to 909, And again, if we select this paragraph, we can see the text color is also set to 909. Okay, but these two values are overwritten for some of the elements. So first, if we look at the navigation part, we can see it has a specific rule sets a background color to a slightly deeper purple color. So that's why it shows up here. If I untick it, we will have the default background color from the body. Similarly, if we look at the heading here, the H1, and it has the default background color, but it has a different text color, which is navy. And if we undo, you can see it go back to the default color of the body and change it back. We already talked about how to change the space between lines of text, and you can change other spacing properties on a web page. For example, you can change the tracking, which is the space between words. Here, the property is word spacing, and then followed by a value, specifying the amount of word spacing. Here using 0.4 EM, which is a relatively length. And also similarly, you can change the space between letters, and this is called the kerning. Here the property is letter spacing followed by length measure. Here is 5 pixels. So here we can see an example of a web page with letter spacing applied. These apply to the headings, so you can see the letters within the page has larger than normal spaces. And if we look at the actual web page, which is this one here, okay, if we look at the CSS file, we can see there it says letter spacing 0.4 EM applies to both H1 and H2. And if we go back to the web page and let's select the heading, and you can see the H1 is selected. On the other side it says letter spacing 0.4 EM, and if you untick it, which disables the rules, you can see the headings now get back to the normal spacing size. And let me get it back on. Okay, let's get back to this slide. So you can actually using negative values for the word and letter spacing. In the same example, for example, we can changing the value, for example here, to -0.1, and you can see the space between the letters in the heading are much smaller, and if you make it bigger, and makes heading actually more difficult to read. So not quite a good idea. Let's get back to a positive value, setting it at 0.2 EM now. Okay, and finally, if you want to get to normal spacing, you can use normal or 0. These one will set the letter and word spacing back to the default. Okay, and the other thing you can do is to add indent at beginning of a paragraph. So the property is called text indent followed by a length, for example such as 1.5 EM or 18 pixels. Okay, here we have an example that adds text indent to a paragraph, and the size of the indent is 1.5 EM. So 1.5 times the size of the font. Okay, here is the example when this particular formatting is applied. So you can see for each of these paragraphs, the first line has certain space before the text. Okay, and yeah, just as before, you can use a negative value to create a hanging indent. That basically means instead of having space before the text, the text will actually move further to the left. Okay, and let's have a look at the example. And yeah, just one thing useful to saying is, as you can see, when I mouse over the picture, there's a link show up here, and that actually goes to the web page, has the same effect. So this applies to most of the pictures in the lecture slides. So if you want, so it's something useful to keep in mind. So let's go to the web page, and okay, you can see the paragraphs had extra space before them. Again, similar before, if we select a paragraph, let's select a bigger one, this one, and we can see among here says text indent equal to 1.5 em. Again, to see the effect of -1, I can change the value to -1.5, and you can see the text now are outside of the browser, which is not necessarily desirable. So I change it back to normal. Okay, back to the slide. Okay, the text property, the text indent property inherited. So any children will also have that. And similar as before, you can use 0 to remove an inherited indent. Another thing you can do in text formatting is to control how the white space in the code will be displayed. Okay, for example, if you have extra space or line breaks in the code, usually these are ignored, but you can change the behavior of that. So to do this, the property we use is called Whitespace, followed by a predefined value. This could be pre, and it will display all the space and returns in the original text. This is very similar to the pre-element we talked about in the HTML part. Another option is called no wrap. So that basically means a line will not be automatically wrapped in the browser, so keep going to the right all the way, even if it's outside the browser. And finally, you have the normal, which is just the default setting, so treat all the white space as usual. Okay, here we have example, says I want to apply this particular formatting. I set white space to no wrap and apply to all the elements with a class called intro. So this is the actual web page, and if we look at the CSS, it says Whitespace applies to, Whitespace setting as no wrap applied to intro. So which elements in the HTML file actually belongs to the intro class? So to do this, we can, again, using developer tools, I can just do a search by pressing Ctrl and F. I have this little bar here, and I can type in intro, and then it will show you where the intro is. So that's the first intro, certainly not the one we're looking for, and this is the second intro. Okay, so it's class equal to intro. So that's particularly paragraph, as we can say it belongs to the intro, and here's this formatting applied. Okay, currently because it's fairly short, you can't see the effect, but if I reduce the size of the browser window, you can see the rest of the pages, the line automatically wraps to make sure all the text are visible. But for this first line, so it will stick out, it will not automatically wrap, stick out to the right. So that's what no wrap is for. And you can also use CSS formatting to change the aligning of the text. I think this is probably one of the most features you want to do when you're creating your HTML homework. Okay, but it's actually good, so not many of you try to align text. And so the property used here is called Textalign. So really this is for aligning text, not for any other element. And the values can be left, so allowing the text to the left or right, which aligns the text to the right. center, put them in the middle, which is probably most common use for headings. Okay, you can have this example here, which put text align the center for H1 and H2, and finally you can have justified. So align text on both left and right end. To do that, you might need to increase a little bit space between the words within each line. Okay, here we had an example which for the paragraph the text align is justified. Okay, let's look at the example. So this is the web page. Okay, and if we look at the CSS, you can see for the H1 and H2, text align in center. So the headings are in the middle, but for the paragraphs, the text alignment is justified. So both ends will be aligned. If we go back to the page, okay, we can easily see titles are now in the center. If we select it and untick, you can see by default it's always to the left. Similarly, if we select a paragraph, and we can see the text line here is justified. As a result, both the left side and the right side, the texts are perfectly aligned. If I untick that, you can see now change back to default with the left aligned. You can see on the right hand side, the texts are no longer aligned. And we can also try, say, right, so the text will align to the right, which give you effect like this, which looks a little bit unusual. Okay, and finally it says that only applied to block elements. Block elements means any element that always starts from a new line, and in our case the headings and paragraphs are block elements which always start a new line in your HTML page. You can also use CSS to change text case. That means you can change the letters from lowercase to uppercase or the other way around. Okay, the property to use is called text transform, and there are a few possible values. You can say capitalize, which will change only the first characters into uppercase, which can be useful for titles. And then you can use just uppercase, will change all the letters to uppercase, and lowercase, change everything to lowercase. And finally you can have none, so apply no changes to the letter case. Okay, and this can be used when you try to cancelling out an inherited value. So here we have an example showing changing the case for H1. It says text transformation uppercase. So as a result, and all the letters in the heading will be in uppercase or in capital, even originally they are not. So that would look like this. So you can see all the letters in each one are now in uppercase, which is not necessarily a good thing, but required for certain formattings. Okay, so the question is, why do we need this? Why can't we just change the letters in the letter case in the HTML file? The answer is sometimes the page is dynamic. That means you do not know the content in the page until the page is created, and in those cases you cannot control the letter case in a page. The other thing is about JavaScript interaction. So by changing the CSS, you can dynamically changing the case on a page. Another CSS formatting is using small caps. So that means capital letters, but usually smaller than their usual size. So that means capital letters with reduced size. And not all fonts support this, and you will find out. If If you apply it doesn't make any difference, that means the font doesn't support it. To do this, the property is called font variant and the value is called small caps. And to remove it, and change the value to none. So here is an example that applies to H2. So here we set the font variant to small caps. So if we go have a look at the example, that's the page. And if we select an H2 element here, and you can see here the font variant is small caps. If I untick it, you can see here it goes back to default. So it's a mix of the small and big, a mix of capital and non-capital letters. And here we use the small caps. You can see all the letters are capital, but except the first ones, the rest are a bit smaller than usual. Okay, you can also use CSS to change text decoration. So the property you just called text decoration, and the possible value are underline, which add a line under the text, overline, add a line above the text, or line through, so strike through the text, or none, which get rid of all the decorations. Okay, and let's look at this example. So here we have a few text decoration formatting for different states of the link. So for a normal link, it says text decoration none, so that removes any previous text decoration. Usually it will have a line under a link, and this will remove that. And similarly for a visitor link, it also doesn't have an underline, but when it's hover, it says, okay, I want to underline when the mouse is over the link. Okay, so let's look at the page. Okay, and as we see, these are applied to the links. Okay, and if we turn on development, okay, now now the links doesn't have underline applied to them anymore, but it still has changed the color and font weight, so we can actually see it. For example, these are the ones. So if we select them, we can see the formatting here. Particularly say text decoration done. If I untick it, you can see by default these has links. Now it doesn't. Okay, so the rule says when it's normal link or visited, don't have decorations, and it's when there's no hover here. But actually when we hover, we can see it actually adds underline to the text, just as described here. Okay, so color and font weight are not text decoration, and you can easily get this because when you're setting color, you do not use text decoration property. And for example, so text decoration none will not affect the color or font weight formatting. Okay, that's it. This is all we're going to cover about text formatting using CSS. So the same content is covered in our textbook as well. and specifically in chapter 10, formatting text with style. So if you want to know more details or there's something not so clear from the lecture, and you can refer to the textbook. Okay, so that's it for this week.